So this is the Ward 1 NPA meeting for October 8th. That's not right. October, what does it say up there? 8th. Oh, good. Okay. 2025. I'm Carol Livingston, and I'm on the steering committee for the NPA, the Ward 1 NPA, and I'll be facilitating tonight. So the first thing we're going to do, if we could, is to look at we're going to review the agenda. There are copies, hard copies out there if you're interested, but just to go through this so everybody's ready. The food is from Namaste Kitchen Express on Riverside Avenue. Wonderful people. They grin when we come in. They know, who we are and are excited about providing food for us once a month. The formal start of the meeting is right now. We'll go through introductions in just a minute where we ask folks to give their name and their street. And that's also a time as you're introducing yourself, if you have any announcements, and this is just pieces of information that you have to share with your neighbors. We're not having a discussion at that point. We can save that for Speakout. But that's just an opportunity to talk about something that's coming up that you want your community to know about. Speakout, about 20 minutes for that, where it's an opportunity for people to raise issues that they're concerned about and want to be sure neighbors know about and maybe have some kind of discussion about. We have our usual school commission update with Gary Golden. Matt Price hopefully will poke his head in. It's going through, there's a lot going on with family, so it may be mostly Gary. City council update, hopefully Carter and Allie will be able to make it. And I think I've misspelled Allie's name again. It has 2 H's in it. So they'll have an update for about 20 minutes. And then we've grabbed a little bit of time as your steering committee. We introduced the budget for this year at last meeting, and we just need to have you vote on that for tonight. Shouldn't take long. And Jonathan will do that with you. And then if we have time at this point, one of the resolution that Carter and Jonathan introduced and talked to all the NPAs about was having the city council be more in sync with the NPAs and let us know and have us be able to give them input about issues of concern. And part of that process, and Jonathan can clarify this, part of that process is to have NPAs outline to sort of list some issues they would like to be sure that the city council knows that are on our minds and we'd like to be part of any decision making. Our 2 presenters tonight, one is from Fletcher Free Library and the other is from the planning department, the city planners. We have Emer Feeney, who's going to talk about what the Fletcher offers. Particularly, she's also going to talk about the Howard Center outreach person, which is a fairly new effort and pretty exciting. And then Charles will be here and speak for about half an hour about the comprehensive plan and just laying the groundwork for just talking about planning for our neighborhood. Any questions about the agenda at this point? Okay, yes, Charlie.
One wired one is kind of like for here. There's another wired one back there. But then there's 4 wireless, as you can see that building. 4 of those out there. So those are for people back there so that people online and the camera can hear you saying.
So the microphones are to project for the people at home. We also do have a projector that helps us hear ourselves better, but it's also important just to try to think of projecting your own voice here. That having a mic in front of you doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to project well.
Yeah, I should say wireless mics will come out of that microphone at the speaker on the floor. These that Carol is holding do not.
Oh yeah, that's.
Does it?
Yeah, it seemed to project my voice.
I turned it down.
Okay.
They're working, that's great.
Okay, great, thank you. In the back, you'll see this handsome man working on a very noisy project that we're hoping you can help us out with. We have new lawn signs advertising our meetings. Unfortunately, we printed them and didn't look carefully at the address, and it says Prospect Street as opposed to Prospect. And so what Rob is doing is we got stickers from the company that printed them for us, and we're putting those on there. We also obviously have the stands for them too. So if you're interested in taking, one or two or three to put up, usually we put them up maybe the Sunday before the meeting on your lawn, and then you're just sort of the steward for them, and do the best you can when it starts getting frozen. Okay, we're going to go ahead if we could, before we start, if we can push to the participation guidelines, Barbara, thank you. Okay, so these are guidelines that we put together. Rob introduced them at our last meeting. Cindy Cook asked that we include something about sort of the mission of the NPA, and that's hopefully captured in that first line. So these are the participation guidelines that we look to have everybody follow. The Ward 1 NPA is sustained by community involvement and encourages engagement at our monthly meetings per the following guidelines. 1, we are collectively responsible for following the NPA meeting agenda as closely as possible regarding both presentation and discussion topics and time. Number 2, participants at the NPA will act in a positive, courteous manner that respects all of those present, both participants and presenters and guests, and their differing opinions, experiences, and perspectives. Any attendee requesting to speak who has not yet spoken at a meeting will be called on before others who've already had a chance to speak. Priority is given to Ward 1 residents. And finally, whenever speaking, please be sure to project your voice, use the provided microphone. And 5, if the facilitator feels the need to redirect activity in the room based on these guidelines, the facilitator will do so per point number 1 above. Any questions about the guidelines? Great, okay. So if we can go ahead and go through introductions, maybe we just go sort of zigzag back and forth if we could. As I explained, I'm Carol Livingston. I live on Calarco Court, which is off Colchester Avenue, and I'm on the steering committee. So if we can have you guys go ahead.
Oh, sharp. Linda Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Breck Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Jean Keller, Bilodeau Parkway. Kathy Alwell, North Prospect.
Karen Long, Henry Street.
Tom Gardner, Mansfield Avenue.
Emmy Sims, Mansfield Avenue.
Mary Gardner, Mansfield Avenue.
Chapel Circle, North Prospect Street. Micro Courts.
Sam Gordy, Colonial Square.
And steering committee.
And I'm on that.
Julie Springer, Wilson Street.
Angie Chapel Sokol, North Prospect Street.
Tom Darenthal, Nash Place.
Gary Golden, also Clarko Court.
Rob Gutman, North Williams Street, and I am on the steering committee.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone who has an announcement to make? Didn't do it when their name was. We should introduce the people online. Thank you. Thank you, Brick. Okay, so Jean, do you want to introduce yourself? You need to, there you
Hi,
go.
I just unmuted. Yes, I'm Jean Hopkins. I'm on East Ave, Burlington Co-housing, but the usual attendees will not be there tonight because we have another meeting at 7 o'clock. But
Thank you.
I will hopefully see you on TV later. Okay.
Great, thank you, Jean. Eric?
Hi there. Yeah, Eric Timlin, Bayberry Circle.
Great. Sophie?
Sophie Quest on Chase Street and the Old East End.
Great, thank you, Sophie. Catherine? Oh,
Hi.
I'm sorry, Catherine Verman.
Yeah. Thank you for saying my name right.
Catherine Verman. I'm not feeling well, so I'm not in person today.
Thank you for taking the time to attend.
Yeah.
Catherine Bach, do you want to introduce yourself?
Catherine Bach. I live upstairs, and I just recruited like 20 young people to come to next month's meeting. They usually meet in this, it's the Climate Action Collective. They're in the Bassett House now, but I told them what it was and they're really interested. So that'll be cool.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Matt?
Sure. Sure. I'm Matt Price. I am the East District School Commissioner.
In here. Okay, so everyone has been introduced. Anyone who had an announcement to make? Yes,
Hi.
go ahead, Karen.
I just went to a city council meeting and I have been sort of, missing in action for the last couple of months, but I thought it was a really good meeting and I have watched it on Zoom, but I just encourage people to watch the meetings. And I think that their effort to, the counselors have this new thing about cooperating and respect. And I think it was a really good meeting. I'm glad that they did vote Carter's amendment ahead just to study it. And his amendment is about really openness. And, I just thought it was good, the fact that they crossed the party lines, they passed it. Because at first, when you heard the discussion, I thought for sure it'll be the Dems against Progs, but they're going to discuss it at the ordinance committee. And I think that's really great. And the other thing I learned, I guess I don't pay very good attention, is that it is costing us $600,000 to open Main Street on the weekends. And it's also delaying the project several months, which, we didn't get a say in that. And I didn't even know about it. So maybe other people don't either. It was and I understand it for the businesses, they needed it, but if we don't know it's open, how do people know it's open on the weekends so they can come and drive down Main Street? So anyway, now more people know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was on Front Porch Forum. I think there were announcements
Was it?
on Front Porch Forum about that too, as well. Anyone else with announcements? Okay. Sorry, Gary.
That's right. So Gary Golden, I'm the Ward 1 School Commissioner. Two quick school announcements so we get our full 5 minutes later. One is if you have a statement you'd like to make for the budget, they are considered. We're in the beginning of the budget process for next year. Please pass those along to me or to Matt. And last year, Dave Colley submitted one and it was read in the meeting and considered. So please do that if you'd like. The other is a reminder, I'll be stepping down in March. So if you're interested in serving on the school board, please talk to me after or at another meeting. It's a very simple process and it's not a hugely time-consuming endeavor on your part to serve. And it's very rewarding. So just, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Welcome, Allie. How are you? Good, good. Do you want to just introduce yourself? Can you have access to a mic over there?
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie Schachter, the East District City Councilor and your neighbor over a couple blocks that way. And I look forward to sharing updates soon. Good to see you all.
Great, Allie, thank you. And I'm remembering that Carter is on the road. So if he could introduce himself. Carter, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I'm back in front of a laptop here, but Carter Newbeezer, Ward 1 City Councilor, now over on Grove Street as of 2 some odd weeks ago.
Great, congratulations. Exciting. All right, anyone else with announcements? Okay, so Sharon, I'll grab you once you come in, but take your time out there. All right, this is an opportunity at this point for Speakout. This is an opportunity for any of us to raise issues that we're concerned about. This can get pretty fiery, which is an indicator of how much you care about your community and about the neighborhood. So we're just keeping those guidelines in mind while we're also being really clear about how we stand on things. Do I have folks who are interested in doing Speak Out? If you could raise your hand if you're interested. So Richard and Jean, anybody else? Okay, you may be moved, you may think of some things or whatever. That's just fine. So Richard, we want to start with you.
Well, apologize for not being at the September meeting. So I would be very, very interested in street clubs, discussions about health and safety that I live with, watch the send the notes and also watch the video. And we reiterated the system policy not to do police traffic enforcement. Since then, we've had two hit and runs on the same block just north of Momo's on North William Street. We've had a young lady paralyzed or potentially paralyzed downtown. Some out of town joker driving up Church Street. So, other vehicles were deadly weapon. We need to treat the second use, send deference as we treat guns.
So just remember to turn your microphones.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, very much. Any comments for Richard? And maybe it makes sense. I mean, Carter's here, obviously, and so is Ally, and maybe both of them can raise Richard's issue again. Just a concern about public safety and the behavior of some of the drivers and a couple of more hit and runs this past week. So I'm not sure how we keep that in front of folks so they pay attention, but that'd be great. Okay, Jean, sorry to interrupt.
I actually had a question for Richard. I've been wondering if there's some ordinance or state law that would require traffic enforcement to be done by sworn officers. Is there a possibility of it being some other level, some other type of person to enforce things?
I do remember from Chief Burke's presentation, because I think someone asked that, and he said it has to be a sworn officer, a member of the police department.
I wonder if that's a state requirement or an ordinance, because it could be something that could be changed, is what I'm bringing up.
Locally,
If the issue is we're having trouble recruiting police officers, if we could just have, traffic nannies or something.
Yeah, that's a question to ask. Okay. So Jean, you had an issue you wanted to raise.
Yeah, I'm Jean Keller from Bilodeau, and you may know I'm the hospital harridan. Anyone here, is anyone here from the hospital, first of all? Anybody here representing the hospital? Just so that I know. Okay. So the hospital came in and asked for zoning changes so that they could build 3, 4, 5 more stories on top of the buildings they have. To house the cars of all of those new patients and new staff, they were going to build a new 900-car garage over by the water tower. But before that, they want to tear down the McClure garage along Colchester Avenue, which a lot of people don't even know is there because it's behind some beautiful landscaping that Act 250 required. They want to tear that one down and rebuild and build a replacement up on the surface parking near the water tower. That would be the first stage. This is part of their long-range plan. And we discovered by looking through their slide pack more closely that they had an idea for replacement on the footprint of the current McClure garage, and that was a building, an office building larger than that footprint that would extend out toward the health department building And according to Charles, the zoning would have allowed it to be 9 stories high and within 12 feet of Colchester Avenue. Some of us put up a big fight at the city council on this when the memorandum of understanding went through, because it would have been entirely appropriate, because it was making city commitments to what it was going to promise UVM for zoning. We could have changed that so that it could not be a 9-story building 12 feet from Colchester Avenue. In fact, we could have required them to maintain the McClure garage. That didn't happen. City council, in its wisdom, gave the hospital basically everything they asked for in the memorandum of understanding. So Martha Lang and I, she's another hospital harridan, I say that with great affection. Martha Lang and I filed with the Green Mountain Care Board to get status in the certificate of need application that the hospital was progressing on to tear down the McClure garage and build the replacement. We pushed very, very hard on the Green Mountain Care Board. And in fact, the Care Board had decided before they even made decisions about party status that they were going to give them expedited review, meaning no public hearing. So it was a very compressed situation, but we did get status. We reviewed the things they had filed and sent letters to the Green Mountain Care Board with lists of questions. Oddly enough, the Green Mountain Care Board started asking the hospital questions. And one of the questions was, where are your engineering studies that say this parking garage is not salvageable? And so they filed partial studies, and we wrote back and said, no, they didn't give us the cover letters. They didn't give us the attachments. They did. And so the Green Mountain Care Board wrote to them and say, you have to file complete studies. Well, lo and behold, a study done last September, the most recent study that they have filed publicly, said, well, gee, you've asked us to talk to you about what it would take to tear this thing down and reconstruct and build replacement. But, you know, instead of spending $38 million on a new garage, if you spent $7 million over the next 20 years, you could give the current garage 20 years life. So Martha and I wrote back to the Green Mountain Care Board our final comments and said, look at this. Did you people read this? Did you even consider this is the less costly alternative, which is the certificate of need standard? And so, you know, a couple days later, they wrote to the hospital and said, gee, it looks like you didn't include in your application that you were going to study the option of saving the McClure garage. We thought, you know, so we'd like you to do a new study that looks at both saving the McClure garage and what that would cost over the next 20 years versus, you know, tearing it down and building a new one. Within, I don't know, 8 hours of that being transmitted to the hospital withdrew its application. Not yet. Not yet. Part of what that means is that we no longer had any standing to get copies of anything going back and forth. So if they were doing a study, which the Green Mountain Care Board had ordered them to do, that whole thing goes away. The whole proceeding is wiped clean and we no longer have any standing. So then the Green Mountain Care Board is doing budget stuff. And I remember, you know, somebody asked the question of one of the hospital people sitting at the table there, why are you talking about this multi-million-dollar garage replacement when you've just been told you have to cut your rates? You know, where's this money going to come from? I have quoted this person in several meetings since. She said, oh, that's the budget people. We're the planning people. That's the budget people, which says to me they haven't been, it hasn't gotten through to them that there's a reset happening here. There's a reset. There's a new baseline. Yeah. But anyway, But the Green Mountain Care Board is still hammering them on their budget. And so the now ex-CEO had a press conference about all the budget changes they were going to make for this coming budget year, which begins October 1st. And he said, well, we're probably going to defer capital maintenance. And that'll save us several $1,000,000 a year. We'll just put off maintenance, property maintenance, which means the $7 million over 20 years for the McClure garage. They decided to let it go to ruin because this study that was done a year ago said you have to start making these investments now. You have to make an investment of at least a couple $100,000 in the next year to even save it for, but if you do, it'll last 20 years. And so the first thing he announces in their budget cuts is we're going to get rid of deferred maintenance costs and save all of you money, which is penny wise, pound foolish. So we wrote to the Green Mountain Care Board and said, as far as their budget is concerned, you have to make them spend this money. And what they came back with is what the hospital came back with in their budget was to say, long term, they're going to tear down the McClure garage and build a replacement. Like they haven't gotten any messages about what it means, not just to our neighborhood and the adjacent people and the traffic and all of that, but they don't seem to understand there's no money for this. Yeah, the care board is, I think, overwhelmed. The care board doesn't have as many lawyers as the hospital. Care board doesn't have as many planners as the hospital. And so then, we also found out in the meantime, and then I'm going to wrap up. We found out in the meantime that the legislature changed the requirements for certificate of need. So now, because the project is going to be under $40 million, they don't have to file a planning thing first and then the major one. They're going to go right straight to the major one, and the hospital got a question from the Green Mountain Care Board. So you're not going to file the planning CON, which is the one we intervened on. Does that mean your project is going to be less than $40 million? And they said yes. But what we know before was they filed because it was going to be 38 million. So it's just under 40 million, but they're not going to have to go through the preliminary review where we caught the little piles here and there. So anyway, there is going to be a meeting of what's called, the Traffic and Parking Committee, which is, an old NPA hospital thing, where we've
and the original parking structure. They're supposed
Right.
to meet with us at least twice a year.
Right.
To keep communication.
And it's turned into something where they tell us what they're going to do and we argue with them or we give suggestions or whatever. But it's like, the whatever you'd call it, cooperation or whatever it is. It's where they tell us what they're going to do. So they have one coming up, and it's going to be available by Zoom as well next week. But I'm going to be unavailable to attend that Monday. Yeah, Yep. So anybody who wants to show up and ask them about it, because it is the last thing on the agenda that they sent out today. It is, they're going to talk about, tearing down the staircase that's taken forever to repair and some other things, but long-range planning is on their McClure garage. And it would have been really easy for this city council to have done something about this, but they didn't. And now we're going to be just chasing them. We're going to have to be chasing them to stop this. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one.
So Tom, do you have a mic?
I don't over here, but I will.
There you go. Is this on? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that the Green Mountain Care Board is doing just a lot better than it had 15 years ago. All right. And they had a history of board members going to work for the UVM Health Network. All right. And that seemingly has stopped. And they've also, the board, the UVM Health Network Board has given their CEO the boot. All right, whether he seemingly did so on his own volition or not is not the point, but he's gone. And I don't know how much difference that's going to make. But I just wanted to say that I agree with you that the Green Mountain Care Board has a lot of work on its plate. And it also is, but it is making some progress. And so we should encourage them to make more.
And there's a group an advocacy group called Health 911 or
Yes.
911 Health or something that our former state rep, Chris Pearson, is the head of. He's from this neighborhood, this ward. So, and they've been, and it has a lot of really smart people with experience in healthcare. And they've been kind of like an outside junkyard dog nagging at the Green Mountain Care Board, and also doing a lot of analysis. And I agree, but they're strapped for money, they're strapped for staff, and they're just overwhelmed by the power of what's on the Hill. And the number of them, like I said, they have more lawyers and they have more planners than the state has. So we have to push high.
Catherine, you have a mic. There you go.
This is where we get to say what we think, right? So I have a question. What if, and this was my wish, all of this time and energy and money were to put into building a public transport system that functioned for everyone so that we wouldn't need parking garages? Wouldn't that be good?
Well, and on that point, the city council pushed them on transportation demand management, and the hospital is going to report on how they're giving people bus passes. Who will ride buses? I mean, I think if you were going to ride a bus to work, you would have had a bus pass already. It's not a matter of not having the money for the bus pass. It's that the buses aren't going to get you to the hospital conveniently and on time. So I think you're making an excellent point. One way to stop this, the building of the replacement, is going to be to push them harder on traffic demand management, at least because the replacement is going to be larger than what the McClure garage will house. But that doesn't deal with the issue of they're letting it fall apart on purpose. They haven't done maintenance on it for years.
The city's doing the same thing, and it is so frustrating to hear this repetition of neglect, intentional neglect. It just hit every button for me.
Right. Anyone else have questions for Jean?
On the one thing, the parking there is really necessary because it's for the doctors who come in and out and the residents who are there for like 24-hour or whatever stretches. So it's a special group of people who need to have their own dedicated thing, not driving around underground. Yeah.
Especially to our city councillors, that Jean's done a fantastic job in showing why we shouldn't trust anyone at the medical
That's right.
center. But that is equally true of UVM as well. UVM separately, but maybe together, we don't know. And perhaps with complicity from the city council, we don't know, just as likely to build concrete monstrosities in exactly the same parts of our ward as the hospital. So we ought to be demanding that the university and the medical centers developments are reviewed, regarded as part of the same entity.
And with great skepticism.
That mic is not working. The southeast mic is not working.
Whose mic?
I forget what his name is. The man who just spoke.
Richard. Okay.
Unless there are questions, I'll
Okay.
wrap up.
Anyone else have questions for Jean or comments?
Oh.
Okay, Catherine, would you like to ask a question? Catherine Verman, do you want to ask a question?
No, sorry.
Oh, it's Carter's hand. I'm sorry. Okay, Carter, you want to go ahead?
No, just a very quick comment is to Richard's point. I think we're right to be skeptical and should continue to be skeptical of both those institutions. And just to give some context, my partner is a nurse in the medical center, and the hospital's made some sort of concessions to the Green Mountain Care Board recently in terms of how they allocate funding and how they're organizing themselves. But that has come with squeezing both doctors and nurses and any other health professional on the patient care side, upping metrics. At one point in the last 2 or 3 months, they pulled every nurse into one-on-one meetings with their management in various parts of the hospital. And we're basically saying, which is a unfair labor practice, but basically saying, if you don't hit these metrics, your jobs are going to be at risk. So they're still sort of making this modest cuts around the edges on a lot of the wasteful spending, I would argue, that exists. And at the same time, like to what Jean's talking about, not necessarily looking at where some like cost-effective options on infrastructure, have this like very grow at all cost mindset in terms of capital investment. And that's why they're pulling a bunch of their reserve funds. They've more than doubled them in the last, I think since 2018, because they want to show folks, have a good, be in good financial standing so that they can borrow a bunch of money. So I do think we've got to keep watching them, and we are right to have a skeptical eye in these conversations.
Carter, thank you. I'm going to close conversation now. Tom, is it quick?
No.
No.
So I'll just.
Okay, and then we may have time later, but I just want to be sure that our school commissioners have the few minutes that we set aside for them. So which was 5. So if you all could come on up, that would be great.
Again, Gary Golden, I'm the Ward 1 school commissioner. So the topic that we were asked to mostly talk about is the redistricting process for the public school system in Vermont. So last election for the state, huge move from supermajority Democratic to less majority. Still majority in both houses, but nonetheless a pretty big shift. And right out the gate, Governor Scott claimed that it was a response to taxes and specifically school funding. And then when the school budgets were voted on in March, over the number of budgets defeated dropped from, I believe it was like 46 to 5 or 8, something like that. So that seemed to back up what he was saying. Was that the only possibility? No, but that was the first narrative out the door. And as a part of that, the Democratic leadership basically rolled over, accepted that premise, and I have to do either an Animal House or Monty Python quote every day. Sir, may I have another? Is really kind of what they did. They just took it on, and that was the narrative for the rest of the session. Lots of debate. The House was probably more measured. They ended up inviting public and private education testimony. The Senate much more toward private school testimony. So in case you're unaware, there are, I think, 12 private academies in the state that are the standing high school for an area of the state. Maybe fewer than that. BFA St. Albans went public when I was working there 20 years ago. The others are independent. They have their own board. They set their budget. They give that budget amount to the local schools that are sending students. No, and you can testify at their board meeting, but they set it. It's not voted on other than by that. It's only about 10% of the high school students in the state. Nonetheless, they had an outsized presence because two members of the Senate Education Board and two members of the Reconciliation Committee. One is a direct teacher at St. J Academy, and the other is a former both board president and contractor for Burton, which is down in Bennington County. Out of that, those two senators pushed through a completely different law during reconciliation than the two laws they were trying to reconcile. They pretty much protected. They raised a threshold for how many students. Oh God, I don't want to get the weeds. If you have any questions beyond that, just ask me. Anyway, what's come of that is a redistricting task force that's meeting multiple times. They're supposed to meet in each county. The Winooski High School will be the host the last Tuesday of the month, 28th, if you would like to go and speak. They are tasked with coming up with up to 3 different redistricting maps. In a sleight of hand, there's no requirement that the legislature has to take one of those to vote on. They could restart the process during this session. It is just amazing that that is the case. So pretty much that committee is faced with either saying it's hopeless or coming up with an incredible plan that, you know, the whole committee will agree on. And that's what they present to the legislature, and they shame anyone who tries to not do a vote up and down. So that's my part.
Okay. And so the committee,
You have questions before?
I don't think we have time.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Well,
Okay, good.
so I'll be quick. So the committee that's currently meeting to sort of oversee the redistricting has met, is it twice at this point? And so they're sort of going through exercises and making maps. The first committee, they did sort of an exercise of map making of what if we just made one giant super district for the entire state, and they found that didn't work. And so that was just sort of purpose of doing the exercises. So now they've released one map, and they have to get a total of 3, as Gary said, by the end of this calendar year to present to the legislature. Their first map, they said they want to target districts of at least between 4,000 and 8,000 students. And around the state, they were able to make districts of 4,000 students at a minimum, with the exception of one district that happened to be sort of the Chittenden County mega district that has about 22,000 students in it. So it's sort of a very bizarrely drawn map where you have across the state 4,000 to 8,000 students per district, and then in Chittenden County you have this super district. They said sort of they were using the availability of technical centers as sort of a grounding point for each district. The odd thing about the Chittenden County super district is that there are 2 technical centers, so you at very least could just split the district into 2 pieces. But this is their first map. They're supposed to release additional maps before the end of the calendar year for the legislature to vote on. Martine Gulick, who is a state representative as well as a school commissioner, is going to send out, or has already sent out, an email notice on Front Porch Forum with an opportunity to respond to a survey to provide feedback to this school redistricting committee. And I encourage you all to look at what they've put out and also to answer that survey as a way to provide just your input on what you think about that. I think that I had a number of conversations with constituents, I will say personally, and when I asked them, like, do you think that the Burlington School District should merge with other districts or should we remain independent? I would say that a real consistent theme was that many constituents felt that Burlington should merge with other school districts. However, the way that merging should look was different across every single individual I spoke with. So while there is some openness for having for Burlington potentially to merge with other neighboring districts that have like-minded values, an affinity of places, might give students more opportunities to travel to different schools nearby. There's not much consensus, I would say, within our ward and our community about what that redistricting process should look like. And no one said that we should have a mega district that should have 22,000 students across all of Chittenden County. I would encourage you all, if you have a chance, to look over the materials they've had and provide feedback on that survey. And then what was the other piece that just jumped to my mind that just slipped out? But those are sort of I guess the key points to keep in mind about what the district and what we're looking forward about this.
And the one thing to keep in mind is because of the new law, there is no research proving that this effort will save any money.
Or is good for students.
Or it's good for students,
Yeah.
but their claim, Governor Scott claim is that money will be saved. No. The only savings in his 5-district plan was because of Chittenden County getting one superintendent and firing 3 others, which would not have held up over time. It wouldn't have held up over time. It's too much for one person to do. So the reality is there's no money saved until you close schools, period. There may be some savings, and there may be some small districts, like the last one I worked in had 2 schools, 100 students each had a principal. Did that make sense? No. Was that a scale? No. So that's about the only place that savings could happen. Then it's going to be a question, who's left standing when you have to start closing schools in Lowell or in Bolton or in any of these small towns, because that's going to lead to this town closing.
And the thing that I was going to say is that there are some districts around the state that have voluntarily chosen to merge with neighboring districts for sort of reasons like Gary sort of shared with, where 2 smaller towns that are close to one another, it makes sense for them to merge. And so the board is open to also solicitations for that. So I would say that just to be mindful about that as well.
So questions, Tom?
Yeah. Has the redistricting board published what criteria they're going to use to evaluate a new school district? How are they going to determine that it's good, bad, or ugly?
No, we were just given a form from the State School Board Association. I've gotten burned a couple of times on my front porch forum posting, so I'll relent and go ahead and I'll post and give you links to everything we've seen that's out there in public. No, it really is trying to balance cost and student performance, student services, trying to keep new districts within geographical areas and service areas. We are also a state that's kind of strange in that we have these county mental health centers that serve any students in that county. But if you start doing these larger districts, you're going to be splitting up counties. And so that's got to be taken into consideration. So I'll give you links to all those sites that may help you.
Well, the items that you've just mentioned are pretty high level. I mean, I'm sure there's no place you can go and say, tell me that students will be served better. You have to go and delayer that and say this aspect of this district will serve students better. And it doesn't sound like they have any criteria to go forward with.
Well, you don't, because there's not a way that we're judging that now. I mean, we do have each school sort of have based on its curriculum model and its software they're contracted. Like we do a lot of testing around literacy because we have a contract with this American Reading Company and they give us that software. But otherwise, you are doing some in the moment testing that may show you some progress, but these bigger themes that redistricting is talking about are incredibly difficult to measure.
It doesn't sound like they've even,
except for long term.
it doesn't sound like they've even tried though.
Well, then now you ask, where's the funding for that? I mean, even the.
I'm not asking that. I'm just saying they haven't tried.
And just to say again, the study that Agency of Ed through Governor Scott did about this mega 5 districts probably cost more than the savings that were going to come out of the 5 district redistricting. So that's kind of where we are. Pat.
I have two. Now I have one because who did that study? Because we have never had the money to do, and they were, an in-house, there's nobody to do it. So who did that study?
The AOE through with the Scott's administration nudging basically went out to a right-leaning educational consultancy firm and they mocked it up.
So Tea Party from Florida.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, the part that frustrates me, I'll put my personal peeve out there. Maine tried this 15 to 20 years ago and gave up about 5 years in the process. We've tried 2 different times and we gave up the second time for the unification move about 8 years ago. And then AOE undid a couple of the unions that came out of that.
Okay, so then my question that I wanted to ask was, where's the equity around this? Because having however many 22,000 student district and everyone else in the state has a 4,000 to 8,000 kid district is outrageous. We have most of the poverty of the state. We have most of the kids that don't speak English as a first language. And how do you then say that that's equitable across the state? Not that, I know there's plenty of rural poverty. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. It's just that we have far more numbers of kids living in poverty in Chittenden County than they do in most of these other $4,000 to $8,000 student districts.
I think that their thinking is, I can share with what I believe where the cost savings is, and you can infer where the equity is from there, is that it's going to sort of redo the funding formula for how school districts are funded. It'll take away the current formula that they have now and move to a foundational formula, which should result in net cost savings across the state, is how I'll diplomatically say it. Not that I'm advocating for that or against it. I just want to say that
So the thinking is the districts will be big enough that it will level out any of those costs. I got it. That seems to be what the.
But I was on the school board when Act 60 went through it the very first time, and all that was in courts, and they were telling us that we couldn't use that base. So now we're going back to it. This is ludicrous.
And I'm going to vote least if this happens because it's not rigor. It's not equaling. One more. Sure.
Yeah, so this is entirely different.
No, well, I don't.
Okay. But so I go to the Board of Finance meetings. I Zoom in all the time. And there was an item on nature-based climate solutions. Why am I bringing this up? Because it was a position and it's a mechanism for teaching students about nature, but also integrating it with science and reading and math. And they've got a position and it started at Champlain, and it's Wild Ways funds some of it. It started at Champlain. Now it's at Champlain, CP Smith, Flynn, and the Sustainability Academy, but it's not at Edmonds, and it's not at the high school. I can give them a pass for that because of Macy's. But I was told, I felt that this was an equity issue. You represent this ward and this region. And I really feel that I'd like you to find out, they said, because I raised the question during public forum, they said that there was no partnership from Edmonds to make this happen. What am I talking about? It really has to do with like rain gardens and, you know, there's the slope at Edmonds where there's runoff. I think there are opportunities. I think it's really important. And I really, as representatives of this region for these students, I think you should try to find out why it's not at Edmonds and absolutely advocate when the high school goes back to North Avenue, that this program be part of
I
that.
think it's a pretty simple answer. It's been a principal in turmoil last year and new principal just hired. So maybe you give them this year we'll present it. I mean,
Well, I guess you need to plant the seed. This is nature, so plant the seed. Okay.
Cecile is the new principal. I'm sure she would be interested in it. It's going to be a question of just transition and getting her feet under her. But yes,
Yeah.
you're there under the kids.
Yeah, I am.
I'll leave it to you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you, because I felt equity is really an issue in this and in the schools, and I feel like our students are missing out on this learning opportunity, and I take climate and nature seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Ally, do you want to come up here? Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I know that Carter and I are planning to tag team this, our first time doing it in hybrid format. So, Carter, would you like to kick it off?
Ellie, actually, would you kick it off? Because I'm just gonna grab my notes here. I just gotta shift around. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So just going to give a few quick updates of recent council happenings and happy to answer any questions as always. I think one of the things that was most interesting that came up before the council, not this week, but last week, was an update from Chief Burke on statistics from City Hall Park since the council passed a resolution to increase enforcement around city ordinance violations in August. And that data was really interesting. I don't have internet here, so I was trying to pull them up, and that's okay. I'm going to do my best to oh, okay. Well, I don't have the login. We'll see if I can do it without, because I think between me and Carter, I think we'll do an okay job summarizing it. And I'm happy to circulate the link to the slides afterwards. But essentially, foot patrols are up, I think, at their highest levels in the last 5 years. And Chief Burke actually has been making that a priority even before that resolution passed. There's been a lot more officers on foot strolling Church Street. And I've heard really positive feedback on it. I think it's a really great way to sort of just improve the community's relations with our police officers and to just kind of sense their presence around the downtown. So there's a lot more foot patrols. There has been an increase in arrests right sort of in and around the immediate vicinity of City Hall Park. And we are seeing a decrease in some particularly drug-related offenses that were happening at a pretty significant level this summer. So I think by and large, it's evidence that when we sort of focus our resources on a certain area and prioritize enforcement, we can make a difference. We're having an impact. I will say a couple things that are of note, and I'm sure Carter will have more to share. We are also sort of subsequently seeing an increase in some criminal activities in the surrounding areas. It's not a surprise. And I think, you know, it tells us that when we enforce, it works. And also like we're not going to enforce our way out of the issues that we're having. They're finding other places to take up. And also just, we have a really backlogged sort of judicial system, and the accountability piece is a big challenge for our community right now. And the city's been making it a priority. We just launched a situation table, which you all may have heard about, which is a collaboration between the police department. We're part of a statewide pilot. It's a pretty big deal, actually, that we're a part of it. And there's local service providers from all sorts of sectors who sort of all manage in some way or another some of the highest risk folks in our community who are in need of the most services and support. And they come together and like person by person, you know, a lot of the a lot of the activity in our downtown, I mean, Chief Burke shared at this presentation that I think 20 people are responsible for, I think, 842 incidents in the downtown this year. So when we sort of like drill into the data, there's other approaches we can take in addition to enforcement to really start to mitigate. I mean, if we can provide alternative ways to manage some of the highest offenders, I think we would feel a real impact in our community. 19 out of 20 of them are unhoused. And I think there's absolutely like, we need more housing, we need more mental health support. All of those things are very real and we're feeling that. And also Chief Burke also shared, like, sometimes these are also very service resistant individuals who have been in and out of the services we have in this community and have been trespassed or had, other issues so it's a very complicated and multifaceted issue, of which enforcement is one part. So we're seeing some improvement in City Hall Park. We're seeing some externalities in the greater area. And for me, and I'll let Carter speak, like, one of the most interesting things to me is that we're looking at a lot of data, and that feels really good. Like, it feels like we're having the conversations we should be having. We're able to dig into the data in ways that, for me, in my 6 months on the council so far, I haven't yet seen. And so I feel like it's allowing us to say, okay, like, we look at this data, we see the impact that this one measure is having, and it then opens up the door to continue having all these other conversations around what is missing. And in addition to the situation table on the accountability side, we also recently launched a City Circle program in partnership with the City Attorney's Office and the Community Justice Center to provide immediate restorative interventions for folks who violate our city ordinances, rather than having to go through the court system. And if they show up to weekly City Circle meetings and take some steps to address what happened, that, it's providing alternative pathways to sort of accountability and dealing with some of the issues. So that was long-winded, but it's very interesting. And I do recommend looking at the slides or watching that portion of our meeting last week, because there was some really good stuff in there. Carter, yeah, feel free to jump in on that.
No, yeah, I mean, you said everything I think that we should touch on. The mayor's been making public safety a priority in the first half of our administration, and we brought together a really strong team in the city, and I think we're starting to see that. I think it's very evident to me that it made me feel not, I don't know if vindicated is the right word, but it I think really is laid bare, seeing how Chief Burke has gone about leading that department, where the gaps in leadership were previously, very clearly to me. It also makes clear that, we've talked a lot of this NPA, and I've talked about before, the priority response plan that we were pursuing. I won't speak to anybody's intentions. It's almost as if you organize the system to not utilize officers in the most effective way, and you leave gaps in responding to calls, that our former sort of way that we organize staff time at the BPD is what you would do. So I'm very glad that we're in a different direction. I agree with my colleague that we can actually, it feels like we can have more serious conversations around, okay, we're trying this, we see clear we see the impacts in the data of X, Y, or Z, and then we can adjust and then say, how are we balancing these various things? I am really worried that as we sort of focus in on the downtown, which we should, because those are key hotspot areas, that until we have more sort of tangible financial support from the state in a variety of areas, that we are kind of just shifting things into different neighborhoods or shifting things around. It pops up there, we go over there, it pops up somewhere else, we go there. So I think I believe, and now I'm blanking on it, so don't quote me, but the mayor said that the governor has finally sort of come to the table, and they have an initial meeting. I believe it was one of the updates at the council meeting, which I think is good news. And although I'm continuing to be frustrated with the governor's decisions around how he's interacting with our city and our community, I do think that there's mounting pressure from across the political spectrum to say, hey, let's just get together and solve these issues, because we're all Vermonters and we need to work collaboratively in government. So that's what I got on public safety stuff. I can keep ranting on other stuff, but I don't know if you want to turn to another topic.
Rant away, Carter. Keep going.
Say it one more time. Sorry, Carol.
Between the two of you, 5 minutes?
Yeah, well, do you want to give the next update and then I'll take just maybe 1 more minute at the end if needed? We
Sure.
have 5 minutes total.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess two other things. One, I posted on FPF a few times, but we talked about a financial disclosure resolution I introduced, and that is going to ordinance committee for further discussion. Essentially, it would say that, and I've talked about it at the NPA before, but essentially say that folks running for city council, school board, or mayor, and there's going to be, sorry, there I hear my 4-year-old stomping above me here. Basically, local folks running for office would file the same financial disclosure forms that we ask of state reps and state senators. The details of that, who files, and specifically what the form asks, is going to the ordinance committee to be worked out and then be brought back in front of the council. And then the other piece is, and I posted as well to FPF, but the Progressive Caucus laid out a list of priorities around housing. Some of these are longer term, some of these are going to take a while, some of these will be shorter term and more medium term, and we can introduce as resolutions. Some will need voter approval, but I posted that information to FPF, and hopefully we'll be sharing more as time goes on. But if folks have questions on any of that, I'm happy to either speak to it now or get together and talk about it in the future.
The other thing I'll give a quick update on is we passed a nudity ordinance. You may have seen it a week and a half at last week's meeting. There was a lot of concern that that would impact the UVM bike ride, and it should not. So I want to be clear. This was we had some instances, I think, I work right downtown. My office looks out on City Hall Park. I see multiple people walking around downtown every summer when I'm in meetings. We're like, oh, there's someone else. But there were a couple particular instances this summer of them right around the school grounds at Edmonds and during school events. And like it sort of reached a point where we're like, we've got to take a slightly firmer hand on this. So we worked hard. The ordinance committee went to ordinance committee, came back. We voted it out last week. Essentially, indecent exposure is now prohibited in our downtown. This does not override existing policies in our parks and beaches and places where there may be different rules, nor does it apply to permanent events. So we worked very hard to try to really address the public nudity that's a nuisance and potentially some could argue is sort of safety concern, but not, totally take away some of the quirky things that keep Burlington weird. So I think we landed in a good spot. But you might have seen that in the headlines as well. So happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I have a question. Yes, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I live on Mansfield Avenue. And the bicyclers are dangerous. They pay no attention to any rules. In the evening, I looked out the window today and by 4:30, it was already dusk. The lighting on Colchester Avenue and the beginning of Pearl is absolutely inefficient for drivers. And of course, these children, adults maybe, love to wear black and hats. So if I hit one and kill one, it'll be my fault. But I had a young man on his bicycle in the bike path. I'm going to make a left-hand turn. There's nobody coming to the left where I'm going to turn. And this lovely young man cut in front of my car. And I had to slam on the brakes. It is terrible at that intersection. There's no rules or regulations. They don't have to follow any laws.
There's nothing. Someone's going to get really hurt. You can't see them at dusk. You can't see them at night. You have a stop sign, I mean, a crosswalk. If they hit it, it lights up and lets you know, but they don't even look. And I'm only thinking of my insurance and their death. And it's not traffic safety for anybody. And that whole section right there is horrible. Unless I go 2 miles an hour until I get off of Colchester and get past the college or the hospital. And I know that I'm not the only person that feels that way. We've been talking about it where I live quite a lot. There's nothing to do. They have free reign. They've got that bike path. Do they follow it? No, they cut in between cars going towards Colchester. They turn from on my left to go down Pearl Street. It's absolutely insane that somebody has not been killed yet. It is really something that needs to be looked at, even if you have a fake cop standing there. I mean, I can't fix it.
Before we leave this evening, I'll make sure you have my email, and Carter, I can give yours as well, and definitely follow up with us because we can escalate that with
I will do
Public
that.
Works. Yeah.
I'll be glad to do that.
It's not always able to get it taken care of right away, but it's really
expecting me to.
important that we all know sort of where those issues are so we can get it on their radar.
But anybody that lives there can see that.
Yeah.
They don't
and-
stop at stop signs.
Not just there, on the way here.
Hi, Sharon Busher. On the way here, and I live on East Avenue, a bicyclist, totally in black, with no reflector on the bicycle. And it's dusk. I got here after close to 7. I could hardly see him. And then it was a guy because finally under a street light. But anyways, he turned left right in front of me. And I think if we are supposedly using alternative transportation, and I'm saying this for Charles's benefit because I saw him walk in, and he's been involved in the transportation management plan, which has to do with biking also. I think that we have to be serious about bicycle safety. And what is required on a bicycle, and I think we need to give something out so that money isn't an issue, so that you have some reflectile material, either ankle or on your back or both, because this really matters to all of us. You don't want to hit anybody. I fear for my life. And as a pedestrian on a sidewalk, if you're not downtown because of the rules downtown versus outside of downtown, I'm going to get wiped out by a bicycle.
Yeah.
Or an electric scooter, one or the other.
Yeah.
I really am. It's dangerous.
I have one thing to say, but I see Carter's hand up too. So Carter, you should go first.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun. No, I was just gonna say, I mean, pedestrians, bikes, cars don't mix. And so I think the answer is, and I'm a broken record, but we need permanently separated bike infrastructure. We need like even the shared use path along Riverside. I think at the time people were really excited about that because there was more walking, biking options. But if you've ever tried walking on, like I have walked that a few times now, especially with like the stroller to go to the Winooski Circle or something, and it's a nightmare because you're looking over your shoulder and you can't hear e-bikes like zooming past you. So I think part of this is moving as quickly as possible to completely separated bike lanes, like something like they have in Montreal, and even thinking about, especially if we have more and more e-bikes being introduced and encouraged to be used, then even getting, especially at least on the main roads, I could even see like bike signal, like traffic lights for these bike lanes, because it really is dangerous. And like, I don't want to hit anybody while I'm driving, and I don't want to get hit while I'm walking.
I will say just 2 other really fast things. One is I feel like this time of year is particularly bad because no one's acclimated to the earlier dusk, and like people are not yet thinking, oh, I got to bring my lights with me, for the ride home. So I think it's a good PSA And I think I'm not, I guess, surprised that it's particularly bad this time of year. But it does make me think there's a community coalition at UVM, and I love your idea of reflectors being handed out or things like that. So I'll flag this for Gail there as an idea. That's something we talked about, and see if they used to do it. So I will bring this back up and say, it looks like it's a concern. We're hearing, that it's an issue, and just see if there's any way that they can help too. Because I'm sure it's a lot of students. So.
Just,
Tom.
yeah, just a quick comment. One of the challenges I think is, especially at dusk, is that if you're on a bicycle, you can see everything. I mean, everything's visible to you. It's that you're not visible to people driving cars. And I don't exactly know how to fix that, but that perception is, I think, natural. It's easy to see cars that have their lights on. All right. And so if I can see them, I'm assuming they can see me.
Right.
Right. Right.
Okay, Catherine.
I have to confess that I'm guilty of going through red lights on my bike and weaving through traffic, but I don't have a car, I bike all the time. And having reflective clothing is really, really important, but also all electric bikes have lights in front and back. All other bikes have reflectors on the sides, but it's still stupid to wear black clothes. And yeah, I'm still alive, but sometimes
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm bad or something.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Carter. And thank you, Ally, very, very, very much. We appreciate it. I'm going to ask Emer Feeney to come on up if she would.
And I'll just say, I'm gonna hop off. I don't mean to leave early, but need to go figure out what is going on upstairs. So appreciate it. Thanks all.
Great. Thanks, Carter. Take care.
Here I is. Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
that'd be great.
Stan, I always feel so weird
So feel free to do
sitting
it.
and talking. Okay, great. Hi. I know a lot of you, I saw you last week. It's great to be back. I think I came about a year ago and talked about the library, and it's one of my favorite things to do is to get out and connect with people. Tonight, I'm just going to talk about a few little things. Last month, September every year is library card sign up month. So we always do kind of a push to sign people up for cards or renew their cards, but we also use that moment and this time of year to talk about our services and remind people of how to access them as we head into this year. Especially a lot of people are feeling the pinch financially and are coming to us and saying, what do you have that's going to help me, cut the cord on my streaming because those costs are going up. So I do want to remind that we have a bunch of different digital resources that can help with, making the budget stretch a little further. And if you can help us spread the word to people, that's always really helpful too. What we find is that a lot of the folks that we want to connect with the most are the hardest to connect with because they're not on social media and they're not on the places that we ordinarily publish our information. So if you know that you have someone who's not super tech savvy or something in your life and isn't connecting with the info, please help us get the word out. We have several downloadable audiobook and ebook providers, Libby and Blackstone Unlimited. If you haven't already gotten those on your phones or devices, please check in with us. We have you have the ability also to ask us if there's a particular book that you'd like us to buy digitally. Oftentimes we can do that. We're part of a consortium in Libby, but we get access to those. Our patrons get access to those books first on Libby, so that's kind of cool. We also have in the digital streaming and downloadable television and movie, or actually they're not downloadable, they're just streaming TV and movies. We have Canopy, which has a lot of Criterion Collection, fine films, also new and popular things. Like I just looked at it last week and they had the Academy Award-winning film Honora that was really incredible. I saw it on a pay-for streaming last year, but now it's on Canopy, and that of course is free for you. You get, I think, 4 of those per month, something like that in Canopy. We also have Hoopla, which has both TV and films on it. And that's actually really good value because they use a ticketing system. So you can use your tickets for things that are more things that are cheaper or fewer things that have take more tickets, kind of like at the fair, actually. And I do want to point out that we're always ready to help people sign up for these things. And you can book appointments with our tech center team, our help desk team, or you can come to our text drop-ins, which happen twice a week. We have one from, I'm going to say this right, 12:30 to 2:30 at our NNE branch. We're not open for most of that time. You just have to knock on the door, and Claude, our lovely tech center assistant, will let you in and give you support. We also have on Sundays at the downtown main branch, from 4 to 6, we have tech support drop-in. So that's for signing up for any of our digital resources, and also things like, I don't know why this pop-up keeps coming up on my phone. Can you help me get rid of it? So those little annoying tech obstacles you have in your life, we're ready to help with those. If those times don't work for you, I just want to say again, we can help you at a time that's convenient for you. We'll just make an appointment to do so. Keeping along the lines of the digital resources, there's some things people may not know we have. They're not as obvious, but they're also really valuable. One of them is consumer reports. You can log in through our website to, if you go to our website, fletcherfree.org, and then go to digital library under research tools, you'll find consumer reports, and you can log in using your library card number. That can be really helpful if you're considering a big purchase and feeling like me, nervous about making the wrong choice. Being able to evaluate things with objective research tools is really helpful. Along those same lines is a really amazing financial tool called Weiss Financial, and that is a financial tool that uses I'm not using exactly the right word, but it's neutral, I think is the word I'm looking for. Rating, it uses a rating system to rate stocks, bonds, other financial, mechanisms that folks invest in, and things like understanding, it's not Medicare, but it's like when you have to make the choice to add on different kinds of additional health care above Medicare. Thank you. Yes. And yes, Medigap, thank you. They have an amazing tool on Weiss Financial that helps you understand which of the services you should be getting that are appropriate for you, for the financial component of it. I was kind of blown away when I went to that recently. They had updated and had so many different educational tools for managing your budget, for young people who are learning about budgeting. So if you have a young person in your life who you notice could use some support, we actually have this great free offering at the library. Very good tool. Yes, it's WEISS. So I would definitely check it out. You might be surprised at the breadth of different offerings on there. I certainly was. We also recently learned more about our tool, Transparent Languages. Sometimes we'll ask the vendors to come and teach us more about a tool, and they also had added a lot. Transparent Languages is also under digital library, but it's under classes. And that is a language learning class offering that has a lot of very in-depth, like you could, if I'm learning Italian, which I'm trying to, I can go there and evaluate where I'm at. Maybe I took some classes in the past. I can take a little test that evaluates where I should be starting learning Italian, and then take, classes that are some of them are interactive, where I'm like saying something and then it tells me if I'm using the right accent, it tells me if I'm saying it right. A lot of the big languages that we are familiar with, but also they have tons of languages I've never even heard of on there. If you're a linguist, if you like that kind of thing, they have a whole bunch of endangered languages that they've partnered with a historical language group that essentially collects endangered languages and tries to make them available. So that's really interesting for just historical and cultural importance as well. And they have an amazing ASL language class series that you can take. So if ASL is useful for you in your life, or you're just curious about it as a really cool language that functions differently than a lot of other languages, you might find that interesting. So I just want to point you to those services and remind you, we will help you learn how to use them, help you sign up for anything that involves putting an app on a device or phone, or just how to use the browser version of it on your computer. We are very invested in these resources, and we want to make sure that folks know how to use them. So don't forget, we're there to help you get onto them. Switching gears a little bit, we had a request to talk about our new Howard Center Street Outreach Team embedded member. Some of you may remember last fall that City Council voted to support having this partnership with Howard Center at the library to help us have someone who is trained in social work, who can take on some of the work that our librarians, including myself, we're taking on in our everyday work to help manage behaviors and offer services to people. So it was really kind of starting to take, with many of the issues we're facing as a community, it was starting to take a lot of our work time. And yet we are helpers. Librarians are helpers. So this was a huge ad for us. Mary Danko, the director of the library, and Gail Batsim, who is our our development manager, worked on this for a number of years, learning about what other libraries who are the trailblazers of having social workers embedded were doing, so that we could figure out what was the right path forward for us, and then figuring out how to do it with Howard Center, because social workers need to have the correct supervision over them. And so that was having that support come from the city was really amazing. It was a huge boost to us. And then having David Lines start with us in February. He is someone who has a long history working downtown. His family owned the Oasis Diner. So he feels a deep investment in the health of our downtown and the health of our community, which, coupled with his training in social services with the Howard Center Street Outreach Team, means that he's bringing a lot of, passion and caring and knowledge to the work. He's with us Tuesday through Saturday, so he's truly full-time embedded at the library. The kinds of things that he does is he might, go around and just kind of check in with people in a friendly way and be like, hey, I noticed you look pretty tired today. Are there any resources I can help you find? Or if someone is, maybe a little agitated, they're having a bad day for some reason, he can go and kind of talk and check in with them. Whereas if I go as someone who has to write trespasses and kind of be punitive sometimes, that's going to maybe escalate things before we've even started talking. So it's nice that we have this other alternative person who can do kind of a soft touch with people and help them maybe get what they need before the day goes sideways for them. And then they might lose access to resources at the library, which isn't good for them or really for us, because it isn't our mission. Our mission is to keep people accessing our resources to build the resilience and, health of our community. So, that's been really wonderful. And my colleague who was just sitting with me a moment ago, she had to take off, but we also just barely started, I'm really happy to announce, a partnership with UVM's social work department to have additionally a social work intern with us who will be with us during the school year. Hopefully every year we'll be able to find someone who's the right fit. That's a master's degree level program. So the folks are coming in usually with some work experience already. And Maggie Pilafine is our new social work intern. She just started a week and a half ago. And she's coming to us having worked with NFI, having worked with the Department of Children and Families for a number of years. So she's really well versed in social services, but is excited to be doing a different approach as this practicum continues. We're really excited. One of the projects she's going to be working on through this winter is creating a more robust community resource area at the library that we hope will include a Keurig coffee machine so that folks can get free coffee throughout the day. One of the things we see in the winter a lot is folks struggling to stay awake who are maybe sleeping rough or even sometimes in shelters, but they're not getting a good night's sleep because it's not the most private or comfortable environment for them. So in order to keep people from falling asleep and, maybe getting trespassed if they fall asleep too much in the library, which is not good for anyone, we offer them coffee. And this will be we hope a easier way to do that takes less time out of our day and gets them what they need to. So there's a lot of different projects she's going to be working on throughout the year. And we're really excited to have her. Okay, that was me saying a lot of things really fast, but I did want to leave time for if anyone had questions about David Lyons and his work.
All right, Breck Bowden, Brooks Avenue. There's a lot of things going on at the national level that are of concern to us. Are there some specific things that you think we need to be aware of where we might be able to be helpful as advocates for the library?
Sure. I think we're coming right up to Banned Books Week, Reading Week, which I think is it next week or the week after? It's one of those two. I mean, I always say, you know, we know that books get challenged a lot in the United States. It's worth looking at some of those lists and asking yourself, you know, can I read some of these? Can I stay up to date on what books and ideas within those books are actively being challenged? Because even though we are in a place where I think freedom of speech and freedom of access to information is very safeguarded, and we work very hard here to do that, there are many places in the country where libraries and schools that those, you know, certain ideas are being attacked in those places and those books are just being removed. We know kids who are vulnerable, who, you know, may be in families that aren't supporting some of their needs, go to libraries to learn information about themselves. And so we really know that that's an important role libraries perform in communities. Knowing what is actually being attacked helps us to be more informed. Additionally, though, we do have our library director, who's a little bit of an expert now, I hope she doesn't mind that I said that, on freedom of speech issues, is presenting on freedom of speech on the 29th, I want to say. It's on our calendar. It's a Wednesday evening, so it could be the 28th. It's late in the month. Thank you. I love it when I can remember the actual date. She's going to be doing a presentation on freedom of speech and its connection to libraries there. So that's something that is highly worth coming out to. That's going to be at the main library. I think it's a 6:30 time. But if I would definitely check the calendar. So I think, you know, that's, you know, learning more about freedom of speech and defending freedom of speech. And that's a central core value that libraries have and a role, I think, that we perform sort of invisibly in communities, along with freedom of access to information, which is, you know, part of that as well. So, yeah, I hope that answered that.
Yeah, go ahead, Angie.
Yes. Thank you, Emer. That was a good explanation of the deep resources that your library has. And I just want to say, for anybody in our community who might get cranky about our taxes, we're paying for this library and all of those resources. And it's not just books and it's not just videos. It's all of those electronic resources that are online for us.
That's right. And
So
you know, with
that's
who can't get to the library, it's really important.
It's money well spent, and I really, really appreciate the work you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Any other questions for Emer?
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking about the library. I'm always available, you know, if folks want to chat. I live at the library. Thanks.
Charles, you all set? Carol Billard is our one of our city planners, the city planner who's found the position.
Hi again, everybody. Yeah, Charles Dillard. I'm the director of the Office of City Planning. I thought I was going to be joined tonight by colleague Parsa Pezeshkanajad, but I think he had something come up, so you've just got me. I'm here to talk about two things. One is the update to the city's comprehensive plan, which is Plan BTB 2050. And then also talk a little bit about what an area plan for your neighborhood might look like coming out of the comprehensive plan. Some of you may recall, it was maybe the last time I was here, I'm not sure. During the course of the negotiations with the medical center on the memorandum of understanding, our office, came to understand that there are many issues of concern, and we heard some of them more tonight about Colchester and biking and just unsafe conditions for many people on the streets. We committed to, in that process, to undertaking an area plan for the east end of the city. We also have committed to doing the same for the Old North End. I'm sure some of you live on the boundary of the two areas, or maybe you think you live in one and you live in the other, or vice versa. But we are going to, following the comprehensive plan adoption in 27, likely in summer or so, start an area plan for one of those, and then we'll follow that process with the other areas. So I'll talk a little bit about what an area plan might look like. We're doing one now for the new North End, so I'm going to share just sort of like what that work looks like. Barbara, if you want to just go, scroll ahead. We don't need the welcome. We don't even need this. Well, this is actually good to pause here. Burlington's comprehensive plan in Vermont is known as the Municipal Development Plan. The state requires that every town and city must have a comprehensive plan if it wants to have zoning and if it wants to collect impact fees for development. And we do, like most communities in Vermont. And so we do have a comprehensive plan. Our most recent one was adopted in 2019. The state requires that they be updated or rewritten every 8 years. So that puts us on target to have this adopted by March 25th of 2027. So we've started the process internally. Today, actually, the submittal date for the request for qualifications for consultants closed, and we received a good batch of submittals that we're going to dig through in the next week or so. In addition to the comprehensive plan, though, the City Council has requested 2 additional plans, sort of independent of the municipal plan. One is a citywide transportation plan, and the other is a citywide economic development strategy. Also, and coincidentally, the Parks Department, BPRW, Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront, they have a system plan that was most recently adopted in 2015. And it's sort of typical that that's on a 10-year or so time frame. So that one is also up for adoption or up for renewal. So knowing that we were going to be doing all this work at the same time, our office advocated for and convinced others in the city that we do this holistically and do it together, rather than treat all of these within a silo. There are obvious interconnections between the way we use our land for housing, for example, and the way we get around. There's connections between economic development and where we might encourage housing growth, and parks, and all the parks programming is all tied up in that. Everything is holistic in this city. I think most of you all, myself included as a resident as well, understand that all of these things are linked in our lives, and they're not, we don't look at them and experience them as silos. So if you can just scroll down, this is just a bit more on what I was just talking about. In addition to the city departments that you just saw, we are partnering with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. We're very grateful to the RPC. They have funded the transportation plan and a portion of the parks plan that deals specifically with getting to parks safely for everybody and moving around parks safely as well. So this is a really big effort. Even the departments who weren't listed on that previous slide are going to be involved. Every department is involved. The state requires that we treat and plan for many topics, everything from energy to arts to parks to utilities, waste, all of this. We're required to address it. And so we will be engaged internally, but also externally as well. And I'll talk a little bit. So currently, we have Plan BTV, which is the comprehensive plan. It is the umbrella, and underneath that umbrella,
We have a series of topic-specific plans like the walk bike plan, which deals with pedestrian and bicycle safety. We also have the net zero energy plan, and then we have area plans, the downtown waterfront, the South End plan, which are adopted, the new North End plan, which I mentioned. We are finishing that one up, and it will be going through the approvals process in early 26. So if you can go to the next one. So this current effort is really taking that model and extending it out and treating Plan BTV 2050, the comprehensive plan, as the umbrella under which the mobility element, the parks, recreation, waterfront, and the economic development element all rest. And from there, there will be other area plans coming. We're sort of just on a cadence of doing these as we can, as we go through the city. For, just for your knowledge, the downtown and waterfront plan was adopted, I think, in 2013 or 15. We probably won't get to a new downtown plan, in the next 5, maybe 10 years. The comprehensive plan will deal heavily with downtown then. So the municipal plan, if you can go to the next slide. The context here, again, most recently adopted in 19. These are the area plans that we have. We're also doing a historic preservation plan right now. Some of you may be keyed into that. If not, there's a project website. That process is 3 or 4 months into a year-long planning study. So please visit our website. I didn't include a QR code here, but if you go to the city planning website, you can find information on the preservation plan and all of the other plans as well. So on the next slide, you'll just sort of see what the need we see is. Much has changed since 2019. In fact, the world has almost changed completely since 2019. There's very strong housing demand in Burlington, but limited capacity to supply it. Housing costs are unsustainably high and continue to be so. Growth is uneven across the city. We have significant community health and safety challenges. Climate change is underneath all of this and is in fact a driving force for many of our challenges. And it is a fundamental issue that we have to address as a community. Obviously, the federal funding climate is inconsistent now. And even if things change in 2028, we have to understand that given the sort of volatility of Washington, we can't really rely like we have for decades, probably the last 100 years, on a stable funding climate in Washington. In terms of mobility, we do have a mobility plan that was most recently adopted in 2011. It's quite old for a plan not to have been updated already. However, we do have the area plans that deal heavily in transportation and some topic-specific plans, the TDM plan, walk bike plan I already mentioned. So we have a very strong foundation of transportation planning, but nothing that is looking holistically across the city, and especially nothing that is being done in tandem with land use, parks, economic development planning. So we're really excited to figure out how we can get, if you can go down to our next slide, how we can address some of the need here. We have a housing target that has come down from the state of constructing about 7,000 new homes. I just got an email today. They miscalculated our target by 135, which puts us just below 7,000, which has some psychic effect, I'm sure. But we have to include that number in our comprehensive plan by 2050. Just for reference, we've been building homes at about 77 units per year. And to reach this target, we will have to build at 288 units per year. So we really have to figure out a way. And a unit is not just a unit. There are obviously different types of housing that we have to construct. We have families, we have seniors, we have all sorts of people who have specific housing need, and we need to figure out how to build those homes for people. We've been moving in the wrong direction in terms of how we get around post-COVID. We've been driving more as a community. We were doing pretty well getting folks on transit, on bikes, walking around before COVID. But between funding sort of cliffs for transit across the country to different commuting patterns and all sorts of things, people have been driving more and driving more alone. And that has serious safety challenges, like we heard earlier, but climate challenges as well. So we're going to be trying to sort of tackle a lot of these interconnected issues. And the next element is economic development. The city has never had an economic development strategy. We do economic development planning in all of our area plans, and there is economic development policy guidance in the comprehensive plan itself, but nothing comprehensive and strategic, and especially nothing recent. We all know Burlington has experienced some big challenges, like much of the country. I think we feel it particularly strongly in Burlington, I think, because we had such a long way to fall. Our downtown was, relative to cities its size in the country, probably one of the most successful. And for that reason, we see some of the sort of consequences of the last few years really acutely. And I think that we're going to be addressing downtown specifically. That was one of the topics that the city council asked specifically that we address in the comprehensive economic development strategy. Obviously, there's a lot that has changed between tariffs, between offending our Canadian neighbors, between rising costs for everybody and just an inability or an unwillingness to spend money downtown. Obviously, the unsheltered and sheltered homelessness challenges downtown have affected the economy downtown. We are experiencing growth in some parts of the city, and growth is uneven across the city. We also have anchor institutions that continue to evolve and will evolve, and this will be, I think, our first opportunity to really look holistically at how those anchor institutions can be a part of the economic development future for Burlington. The Parks Recreation Waterfront Plan was, again, most recently done in 2015. What time do I need to end here?
15 minutes.
Okay. We, like the area plans, have individual park plans. Maybe some of you have paid attention to Roosevelt Park. There's been a plan for that one recently. The comprehensive plan is also due for an update. If you can scroll to the next screen. COVID also had huge impacts on the way people use open space and parks across the country, and Burlington included. And so we need to address some of those challenges. Equity has become much more of an issue for communities across the country since 2015. So we need to figure out how to make our park programming and park facilities more accessible for all types of people. And we need to figure out, if we are growing so much, where parks need to be if they don't exist today. You all happen to live in the part of the city that is extremely underparked. There's only one city park in this part of town, and that's a problem. So we need to figure out how we can acquire additional properties for city parks, but also partner maybe with the institutions or other property owners to find open space opportunities for people of all ages. Climate change has also been a huge challenge. We know that our waterfront is really suffering. Beach closures continue to be a challenge, and they will be into the future for the rest of our lives. And so we need to figure out how to get access to water for people, especially those in sort of underserved communities. To tie all this together, we're going to use a scenario planning approach that essentially presents the community, you all, and internal stakeholders as well, with different growth scenarios that each have their own sort of assumptions about how people are getting around. So for example, maybe we say that, we want 50% of the growth to happen downtown and the rest of it evenly distributed across the city. What does that mean if we want to hit our transportation goals of getting more people on the bus or on bike or walking around? And then we'll be able to spit out a lot of data about, what's our cumulative greenhouse gas emissions as a community or as an individual household? How do we get better access to parks? If we're concentrating growth so much downtown, we really got to figure out more parks and recreation opportunities downtown. Or if we concentrate growth in the new North End and the South End, what does that mean? So there'll be many opportunities for you all to sort of look at these different scenarios as a community and hopefully coalesce around one that we can agree on that incorporates all of the economic development, parks, transportation, and housing goals and all the others. So I'm going to stop there in the comp plan. Here's the timeline, the next steps. We have started some neighborhood visioning workshops. The first one is going to be on October 20th. That's for the South End. You're welcome to come to any of these. We're going to be covering the citywide comprehensive plan. So basically giving you an audit update of the comprehensive plan, telling you how we've done on implementing the policies and objectives from the 2019 plan, confirming with you all whether the vision and themes and objectives in that plan are still relevant. And if not, what are some new visions and themes that you have as a community? At each of these workshops, we're also going to be sort of doing the same thing for the area plans that have happened in those areas. So the South End does have an area plan. The Old North End on the 23rd, downtown and waterfront on the 27th, and on the 30th, the East End. And the New North End, because we're engaged in the Plan BTV New North End, we're coordinating that.
Yeah, it's here. Is that
No.
what you said? No, no. Easy.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no, I meant in Ward 1, I don't. yeah. Yes, yeah.
Mansfield Park is,
I thought you said the New North End, I'm sorry.
yeah. So the New North End will be in November in coordination with a meeting for that area plan. We have a website for the Plan BTV up now. We're going to be selecting a consultant team over the next few weeks, start the visioning workshops. We're forming a planning advisory committee consisting of city councilors, representatives from boards and commissions, the mayor's office as well. That will be trusted advisors throughout this process. We're also going to be having many focus groups that we're drawing up now. We'd be happy to take ideas from you all about specific focus groups. We'll share all that information as we start to produce it. This process will wrap up though in December of 26, so that we can get it adopted by that deadline of late March of 27. Yeah, happy to take any questions. I can also go through the area planning work and talk about that.
Hi. So thank you for this overview. This was really good. I understand the need to have the plan incorporate all the various aspects, like you said, CEDO and parks and planning. But I also, I feel there's a caution inside of me that planning is what the community would like to see, the vision we have. You're the expert, but we have the vision also of what we would like to see Burlington look like, what we want to preserve, how we want it to develop and grow. And CEDO has a very different mission. They're the developer. And so I'm very concerned with that integration. There's always been that sort of yin and yang. We tried to merge when I was on the city council, CEDO and planning, just FYI for Allie who's here. And there was an uproar from many members, far more experienced than I when this happened. I was a newbie, about the dangers in doing that. I know that's not what you're asking for, but I do want that planning to really not be led by a developer. And I'm concerned about that. I needed to lay that out for you because I really don't want that to be the case. I think that it makes total sense to have a step back. We haven't had it. I've been here a long time, so I was here when Church Street, the concept of Church Street came about and the marketplace, and that was a very finite area, but it was a lot of work and a lot of ideas. I just took it in. I didn't say anything. I didn't know enough to say anything, but it worked out really well. And so I think, there is a value in having a community and economic development plan for Burlington. I don't want to speak against that, but I want to make sure that planning and the municipal development plan, it says development, but the municipal development plan has a component of looking out for what's best and is not being driven solely by development. Because as you may know, other people do know, open space, pocket parks, whether big areas of land are really important. And especially as we get hotter, the more tree canopies, the difference in heat index can be 8 degrees between an area that has tree canopies and that doesn't. So this is serious stuff, and I think hopefully we'll be smart in this, but I just wanted to state my caution about that for me, from my perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Well, sure. Our office is directing this effort. We will certainly look out for the interests of the community, and I would say CETO will as well. We're all in this together as a city. We're working very closely already and have a really great team. But point taken. I mean, each department has their own interest and perspective. And part of this is trying to break down these silos and sort of knock those hard shells off and sort of think more collaboratively. And so we're going to do that. I rest assured.
Neighbor told me fences make good neighbors, so, sometimes those little.
Sometimes they do. We had one here and one here. So.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on Sharon's comments. I realize you've said there's going to be some focus groups which would allow, I presume, for public input. But on this advisory committee, that sounds like it's going to be mainly the agency and committee or division heads or representatives. Is that a place for an opportunity to have a community member input, some either ad hoc community members or representatives of independent organizations in Burlington who could serve to provide some of that balance that Sharon is talking about?
Yeah, so the advisory committee is going to consist of representatives from a few city council committees, the Parks Board, the Planning Commission, the REIB Commission, the Mayor's Office. It's about 10 members. Really trying to keep that one small. But absolutely, yes. I mean, we have thought about other sort of types of committees, focus groups as well. We are not closing the door on any kind of engagement. We're going to be doing more engagement in the next year and 16 months than probably any of us have ever done. And part of that will include there's like really no process. I mean, you sort of create new engagement opportunities as you go. In the New North End plan, for example, like we were adding members to our own advisory committee for that 6 to 8 months into the plan as we were meeting people who felt like were really important community members to have on that with a strong perspective. So yes, there will obviously be multiple opportunities, and we're also just happy, like our doors are open. And if you want to give us a call or meet with a specific group, yes. And the focus groups, we're going to solicit, ideas from the community. And if there are specific organizations that have allies that want to meet with us as a focus group, we're open to that. And
okay, I'll just press a little bit that I think it would be wise to have at least, and I understand the need to keep an advisory committee small so that you can control it. But I do think it's important for a high-level advisory committee like that to have a couple of members who are independent of city government who are a part of that.
Yeah, I'll take that back to the team. Thanks for that. We are also going to have a student advisory committee as well. We've been working with Hunt Middle School, Burlington City Lake at the high school. And so hopefully we're going to get a good group of students because this is going to be their city and not too long.
Yeah. Charles, so I know that the state says 7,000 new housing units for Burlington, but that seems all very, very top down. And I wonder, we don't have the infrastructure clearly in this city for how many people we got now, 40,000, 42,000, something like that. We clearly don't have the infrastructure in the city for what we have at the moment. We're short and struggling in so many ways. Regardless, what pushback is there by the city to say that's not realistic? We need to sort ourselves out with what we've got before we start building another 7,000 housing units, which we haven't built. How many have we built in the last 30? I've lived here for 30 years, and Peter Clavell was mayor, and one of the things that people were asking at that time was, how big should our city be? How big should our city be? And a lot of consensus would be, well, we're about right. and we were getting accolades, and now we don't get many accolades. And we haven't built many housing units, and our infrastructure, if anything, has regressed. So
Yeah.
I would like to see an awful lot of pushback. But I would also offer one other caveat, is that for as long as I've lived here, I thought that all the communities in Chittenden County compete against each other. We heard earlier on about the schools. The schools compete against each other. Maybe that's okay, maybe it's not. But there's not a holistic Chittenden County economic engine that benefits people. Everyone wants a hotel in Williston, or build a hotel in it's not viable going forward. We need to have something that people can unite towards, as whether it's the community or the business. It's just to say 7,000 and blindly accept it is absolutely unrealistic.
It is a 25-year housing target, and the target is a target. The number is a number. The real challenge for the state, and especially Burlington, is that the rent is too high. Housing costs are too high for everybody. There are hundreds of people who are sleeping outside tonight because we've not built housing in this. One of the reasons is because we have not built housing in this community. They've eliminated homelessness for the most part in some countries because they've built enough housing for folks intentionally, specific types of housing. And I think we can do anything that they can do. That is the real material goal here, is bringing housing costs back into the realm of reality for people and making this a successful place. Burlington is a great community. I mean, I know there's a lot of challenges here, but there's people who want to move here from all over the country. You know, I've had recruits trying to move here, great people from across the country who really want to move to Burlington and Vermont, and they can't because they can't find housing, they can't find childcare. So we have a lot to do there. And the target is a target. We're going to start slowly. We're not going to hit our yearly target for the next few years, but that's not to say that we might not hit a point in 10 years where things are vastly different and where we have built up the workforce, and then where we do have funding for infrastructure. I mean, we did pass, the community, you all did pass the bond this past March to fund water infrastructure. And so we do have the water infrastructure. And if we have a will to develop in a way that is in line with our climate imperatives, not even our climate goals imperatives, which means getting people out of single occupancy vehicles, we can figure out a way to pay for infrastructure. The most expensive transportation infrastructure is roads for single occupancy vehicles. And so we have to figure out a way not to sort of get around that way primarily. Yeah, target's a target. South Burlington's target is higher than ours is. Winooski's is at a pace they've never built at. Essex Junction, it's the same everywhere across the state. People want to move to Vermont, and I think we can build housing in a way that retains the beauty and character of this state while also being welcoming.
Yes.
But it's true.
I just have one quick thing.
I have one quick thing too, which is you listed those sessions, which I would encourage everyone to go to if they're able to. Ward 1 is funny, right? We have like this big East End area, and then we've got like where a lot of us live, which is sort of like, are we Old North End or are we East End? So I was wondering if you could clarify kind of like where the boundaries are for the purposes of like.
Can I turn that back on you and get a show of hands for people who think you live in the Old North End? How many of you would say you live in the East End? Do you is the East End even a neighborhood in your?
I feel like Old East End is like, it's like the other side of Prospect, like down
Yes.
Colchester Ave.
Yes. Okay, yeah, drawing boundaries for these sorts of plans is always kind of impossible. We spent a long time doing this for the New North End plan, like where's the southern boundary of the New North End?
Sorry to open a can of worms.
So yeah, I would say you all probably, you know, live your lives in the entire city, parts in the East End, parts in the Old North End. Come to either one or both if you want to, or none of them if you don't want to. Willard.
All right, so okay.
Yeah, so
Good.
That's some whole sections here too.
yeah.
But Willard was the Mason-Dixon line of the Old North End and Ward 1, and we didn't really have a name. We were just Ward 1.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be tough for you all. You all are like the
We like
border.
either one.
You're
of
the
these
border
names.
region. Yeah, come to both. I mean, they're gonna be really interesting. And also say that your visioning workshops are gonna be a little bit different than the others. Both of them actually, because we don't have and never have had an area plan for the Old North End or the East End. And so we're gonna be doing a little bit more visioning work with you all. I haven't gotten into the area planning stuff, but in the New North End, we spent a couple months doing visioning work, and we're going to do a more intensive visioning process with these two communities in advance of sort of the 2 years from now or 3 years from now area planning process that we start.
Just, I have to say, because I've lived here, I don't know, 48 years, to me, the most divisive thing, excuse me, Burlington went through was the zoning change downtown, which allowed, it was going to be a 14-story. Because we need housing and we have a homeless problem, which we do. But I heard that those hotels on the weekends are renting for $500 a night with the lake views. I mean, I'm sorry, I think our planning department, and you weren't here then, or you weren't with your position. I just don't get it. Like, how did we let that happen instead of it being housing for people that it was supposed to be? Anyway, that's all. That whole thing.
Yeah,
there
that's
was
right. I mean, that's part of
my opinion of
part of the
Burlington, too.
economic development plan is sort of looking at our tourism base and sort of recommitting to that or thinking differently about that, or do we spread the tourism base out throughout the city? You know, in the South End Innovation District rezoning process, it was decided not to allow hotels down in the South End. There aren't any hotels in the New North End, but there's a desirable places. Does it make sense for people to have hotels? People want to visit. There's an economic development component to that, you know, attracting things like conventions. And I'm not saying that's the primary goal. Agreed, housing has to be the #1 priority. And so we're going to be asking these kinds of questions. Do you agree with the plans that were made 15 years ago, for example? And if not, what's different?
Good questions. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you so very much.
There is information, a lot of it right now on the New North End page for that plan. So if you go to the city's website or just Google Plan BTV New North End, there's a lot of great information, graphics. You can learn about that plan you can learn about the plan for the New North End, but you can also get a sort of idea of what an area plan might look like for the East End or the Old North End.
That asked me to say that.
Oh, yes.
And he was asking you to tell him.
Yeah.
That we have representatives on the planning commission, Earhart Monka and Alex Friend. They both live in Ward 1, and they both would love to hear comments if you choose to let them know what you think. And I swore that I would remind people about it, and I almost forgot, so apologies, but certainly let Charles and planning know, but they're the commissioners on the planning commission, and they would like to understand what Ward 1 residents think and want them to speak to during this process. Okay? Thank you.
I clearly forgot.
Well, yeah, normally it's here, but he's out of town for.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Great job.
Yes, the meeting's been.
You did a really good job.
Thank you all. Thanks so much.